Spoiler warning for the Stormlight archive. If you're watching this video, I'm going to assume you've read pretty much every single thing. With the 5th Stormlight archive book, Wind and Truth, coming out in a few months, this feels like a good time to talk about some of the most popular theories that the book will probably answer. I decided to talk first about the biggest question that this book should definitely answer: who will be Odium's champion? And what seems to be the most popular answer to that question: Adolin Collin. In this video, I want to talk about the evidence for this theory. First things first, the farthest back that I've seen this theory go is a Reddit post from about 3 years ago that outlines some of the main points in favor of it. There are 7 points that this post mentions. First is that Adolin is a world-class duelist. This is obviously one of the most important attributes that a champion going into a trial by combat could possess. And Adolin is not simply a good duelist, he is consistently demonstrated to be one of the best in the entire series, in his fights with the various Shardbearers throughout Words of Radiance, as well as fighting off the group of people in Rhythm of War. Now, I can see a potential counterpoint to this, in that Adolin is not a Radiant, and any Radiant who is even a decent duelist could have a very good chance of beating him, which, of course, is exemplified by his defeat at the hands of Szeth. However, I think that this counter has its own counter, because Adolin has a relationship with his sword, Maya, that is getting closer as she heals from her broken bond. And I think that if she is able to heal fully to the point where she can bond another knight, then Adolin may become a Radiant himself, giving him an even keel against anyone who is also a Radiant. So I think this is a good piece of evidence. The second point is that Adolin has eyes that are familiar to Dalinar. This is a reference to a vision that Dalinar had in which he sees Odium's champion, who had eyes that were familiar to him, which is obviously something that Adolin would have. So, as far as I'm aware, there's no counter to this point, and I don't have much to say about it other than that. It's a good bit of evidence. The third point is that Adolin could be made to look like a Parshman through the same process that was used on Amaram. This is also referencing Dalinar's vision of the champion, in which he said that the champion looked like they might be a Parshman. Now, this point isn't actually evidence. The fact that Odium can change seemingly anyone into something resembling a Parshman by no means can be taken as evidence that that will happen to Adolin. But I do think that that's an important justification to explain how his appearance could be changed, and thus avoid a potential plot hole. So I think it's absolutely worth addressing in this theory. The fourth point is that Adolin isn't a Knight Radiant. This one is referencing the original poster's own thoughts on the matter, which was that a Radiant would be stable enough to resist Odium, and therefore his champion will not be a Radiant. A clear counter to this point is the Order of the Skybreakers, who, in their entirety, are opposed to the coalition under Dalinar, and are willing to openly fight against them. This means that there's an entire Order of Radiants who could conceivably be Odium's champion. For this reason, I think that this point is incorrect. I would say there's actually a much higher chance of Adolin becoming Odium's champion if he were to bond with Maya and become a Radiant himself. There was one comment on a separate Reddit thread that I saw that said, making Adolin Odium's champion would throw away the entire plotline with Maya. I think, on the contrary, it would actually serve well as a completion of that plotline if done well, which ties into the next point. The fifth point is that Adolin has ties to Maya, who was around before and during the Recreants, and consequently has a very nuanced view of the war that's not necessarily in favor of the human side of the war. This is why I personally think that it would complete the plot of Maya healing for her to bond with Adolin and then make some sort of argument that convinces Adolin to fight for Odium. The sixth point is that Adolin says he was born under the number 9, which is a reference to Dalinar's vision and how he saw Odium's champion with 9 shadows. To me, this piece of evidence seems fairly weak, because neither the shadows nor Adolin's statement have been explained at all, and the only connection between them seems to be the mention of the number 9. That being said, of course, Adolin is the only character I can think of who's been explicitly connected to 9, so it is possible that this is a foreshadowing. Without any more context, there's no real way to know, so we'll just have to see. The last point that this post mentions is that Adolin is someone who no one would be very willing to kill. Dalinar is his father, Kaladin his friend, Shaylin his wife, Navani his aunt. Nearly everyone on Honor's side has a specific reason to not want to kill him. And this seems like a fact that Odium, especially under the control of Taravangian, would put a lot of effort forward into trying to exploit. This, however, just like the possibility of Odium making him look like a Parshman, is not actually evidence. Instead, it's a justification for why Odium might try to recruit Adolin for this role. Frankly, as far as justifications go, I think this one is very good. A betrayal by Adolin would not simply be a difficult thing for some other characters to handle. It would be a devastating turn of events that would massively shake things up in the story, which is something that I think Brandon Sanderson would really commit to. And I think this could be used to some really, really good effects moving forward. Now, that was the last point that the particular post made, and I think it covered most of the major aspects of this theory, but there's one point it didn't cover that I think really overshadows all the rest. And that point is Adolin's grief at his mother's death and his feelings of anger and betrayal towards Dalinar that, so far in the story, have gone unresolved. I think this is important because Odium has already been shown to try and use emotions like these to bring Dalinar to his side in Oathbringer. It would be a really, really good reprise for Odium to fail in recruiting the father, but succeed in recruiting the son by exploiting emotions evoked by the same exact event. That would be kind of actually brilliant, and I can guarantee that if that's what happens, it's going to be done well. So my thoughts on this theory in general are that it's well thought out, and it makes a lot of sense, and I actually subscribe to it. I think it's going to happen. Like I said before, it would shake things up in a major way, which is both what you would want in a finale, this is going to be the 5-book finale in the 10-book series, and what Brandon Sanderson is good at doing. Anyway, that's what I think. Tell me what you think in the comments.